I just want to first thank your comments on things like political correctness and the obsession of certain elements of the left on campuses to screen out discourse, because I genuinely think that is an issue and problem in status quo. But following on from that, I just want to pick your thoughts on what you say about freedom of speech and discussions in general, right? Because you basically flagged that, I think, in your answers just then, that freedom of speech has an instrumental purpose. It's there to help us find truth, correct me if I'm wrong, to identify the correctness or the logos against the possible consequence of blood and death. So here's the question, right? If I, as an individual, am affected by discourse in a way that doesn't cause physical violence, so that's not banned by hate speech laws and whatnot, but makes me feel so deeply uncomfortable that I don't belong to society or this community, or when I say something, whenever I try to say something, I'm ridiculed because of my race, the way I talk, or my gender, or the way I behave, then surely that means that my valuable insight to contribute towards logos, towards the pursuit of truth, is shut out by other people's more vociferous speech and more dominant speech. And this is what we see in cases of campuses, whether it be from the right or the left, of people using very violent and loud language to drown out dissent, to drown out those who oppose them on campuses, in society and whatnot. From Donald Trump to people in Swarthmore, we've seen this happen. So wouldn't you say that the attempt to claw back or the right of freedom of speech isn't so far absolute as instrumental? And based on that, therefore, there are some cases where freedom of speech of some individuals can be curtailed if we want to get the better appreciation of the logos and a better inclusion of more voices that are currently being shut out as a result of the extremity and radicalism of those select few. Wouldn't you say that's the case? Thank you.
Well,
Wow.
well, there's a very simple answer to that.
Hey, check out my man. I kind of think Jordan Peterson is he met one of his others. He met another Jordan Peterson-esque type of person, like next level IQ type of person, type of individual. And I believe that he's excited to welcome that, because he was sitting there, he wasn't really smirking. I thought I saw a smile. I don't know if it was a grimace that, dang, this boy is smart, or something like that. But sheesh, he looked proud. He did look proud. But guess what? He about to have something on his hands, because this young man, hopefully they don't have to go back and forth, because this will be one of them type of prize fights for real.
Well, there's a very simple answer to that, which is yes, but I'll elaborate. I mean, the first thing is, like, I'm not an admirer of hate speech laws, but that doesn't mean that I'm naive enough to think that there's no such thing as hate speech. So obviously, if you've ever been involved in an extremely serious argument, you know perfectly well that there's such a thing as hate speech, because you've probably uttered some. So, you know, and there's also no doubt that there are forms of speech that are utterly reprehensible, and some of those are actually already punished by law. You can't incite to violence, you can't libel someone, right? So we have some restrictions already on what's acceptable discourse. Whether it's the case, typically speaking, that some people have more privileged access to free speech than others, well, that's obviously the case. I mean, that's part of power. And power is one of the means by which people climb hierarchies, although the more you can climb a hierarchy by exercising power, the more that's an indication of the fact that that hierarchy has become corrupt. So there's no doubt that these structural impediments to the free exchange of discourse exist. There's also no doubt, as you already laid out, that that's not in everyone's best interest, because what you want, if you have any sense in your society, and this is also why I think that we've put proper emphasis on the sovereignty of the individual, is that you want everyone's logos to have the opportunity to clarify the unknown and reconstitute the world. And if you shut that down, then you risk getting access to the unique insights that that individual might bring.
Okay, so
I agree with your diagnosis completely. And I think that, you know, even in the West, to ignore the fact that many of our hierarchies tilt towards tyranny and that prejudice still exists in multiple forms is a mistake, although it's only one factor among many and shouldn't be identified as the primary causal determinant of each individual's life. I think that's a dreadful error. The question is, what do you do about it? And the devil's in the details. And as I said already, I'm not an admirer, for example, of hate speech laws, even though there's plenty of hateful speech, because I think the best thing to do is to leave free speech alone as much as you possibly can. Not because that will result in the perfect conditions for free speech, but because anything else that you're likely to do is going to make it worse rather than better. And so that's how it looks to me.
Can I just follow up
very quickly?
So, just want to pick your brains on hate speech laws.
I apologize if I'm not talking too much. No, I don't apologize, because I'm honestly here to just listen to some brilliance go back and forth and see what comes from it. That's pretty much it. And for Jordan Peterson to be able to sit at this, I'm guessing university. He said a university. I heard this one was from Oxford or something like that. But he's sitting in front of a university, speaking to a bunch of super high IQ people, young individuals. The young man's question was extremely intelligent. And the way that he gave it was like, wow, it blew Jordan Peterson's mind for real. But the fact that Jordan Peterson can sit up there and comfortably just explain to this young man exactly what the world is and what to expect, and just answering his super intellectual question all at the same time, that just shows how brilliant Jordan Peterson is. So if you find me just listening and not doing too much talking, trust me, I'm just trying to learn just as much as you all, because this guy he's different.
Very quickly.
So, just want to pick your brains on hate speech laws, because it seems that you agree that the pursuit of logos and logic and some sort of achievement of individualization, individual autonomy, that is the end goal of discussion here, right? So let's assume, like, correct me if I'm wrong again, that's the end objective. Here's the thing, it seems
No,
like...
I wouldn't say that exactly. I wouldn't say that exactly. I think that's too individualistic. I would say that what you want is two things happening simultaneously, is that you want to maximize individual development, but you want to do that in a way that brings the greatest amount of harmony simultaneously possible to the familial unit and also to the broader social unit. So those interests have to be stacked. It's like what's best for you, but that's also in a manner that's best for your family and for your community. So it's not purely individual.
So on that basis of achieving communal harmony and individual freedom at the same time, wouldn't you say that there's certain forms of free speech or hate speech that are so vehement and so de-dignifying that it disrupts both local harmony within communities, but also makes individuals feel as if they can't really engage in retaliatory, clarificatory discourse against them, because they fear the potential repercussions. Even if it doesn't lead to violence, they just fear it so much that it might irrationally or rationally even drive them to not speak.
It happens all the time.
Absolutely, young man. Great point. All speech is not speech that you should just leave out there all willy-nilly and let people decide to say, because guess what? It will break somebody down, Jack. It will break them down. And all speech, not all speech. I get it. Listen, I'm not trying to break up the daggone First Amendment or anything like that. All I'm saying is, some of that speech, man, is just, whew. Oh my gracious! It's wild.
In fact, it's the standard situation. If you look across the world, most societies don't do a good job of either promoting or allowing free speech. I don't know how we ever managed it. It's so unlikely, because it's so hard on people. And hard on those who occupy positions of power in tyrannical hierarchies, that I can't believe that any society's ever managed to figure it out at all. So those dangers are always there. And I also think the highest likelihood often is that societies that do put high value on free speech will lose that, because it's so difficult to maintain. So, but with regards to hate speech, for example, let's say that things would be much better if there was less hateful speech.
Yeah.
Seems highly probable to me, especially if you look at the more egregious forms of hateful speech.
Yeah.
How best to regulate it? Well, my sense is you let those who wish to utter hateful things do so, and let everyone hear them, because that's the best way to ensure that what they're saying will be understood and rejected. Now, in order to posit that, you have
I get that now. Oh, okay, I get it now, bro. I get it. I get it. Let people continue to be jerks and say whatever they want to say. They're smart enough to read the room and see that people are rejecting every single thing that they're doing, and people hate being rejected. Like that's one of the last things anyone wants. That can drive somebody up a daggone wall to be rejected. And when you're seeing that you're rejected time and time and time again, even when you say, you know what, they're not accepting of me over here, I'm going to go more to a group who are like-minded, where I can only talk to them. I got only because that happens. Y'all know that happens. But essentially, when you do that, you're pretty much a coward, because you're going only to the people who will validate your dumbass decision making, when you know that it's just something that you should just stop doing. Just relax. That's like being in a relationship with somebody, right? And they tell you their pet peeves of you, but you feel entitled. You believe that they're not going to go anywhere. You believe that you're the best thing since sliced bread, and you can do whatever you want regardless of their pet peeves for you. They don't like when you're always grabbing their butt or always kissing them, or they don't want you daggone doing little ridiculous things they done told you about already, but you continue to do it. Well, when you're rejected, that's going to tell you that, dude, the decision, young lady or young man, the decision was yours to do what was right and preserve your relationship, but you decided to continue to be a jerk. So since you decided that, you end up in those small corners, those small little cells of people who will be like, yeah, what you're saying is not ignorant. The rest of the world is wrong, not you. You know what? I get it now. Okay, all right, my bad. All right, I think I get it. Okay.
They're saying will be understood and rejected.
Yeah.
Now, in order to posit that, you have to assume that the population composed of sovereign individuals is wiser than it is foolish. And, you know, that's a hope. You might think about it as an axiom of faith, but I do believe it to be the case. I think that if you put the evidence in front of people, by and large, they will do the right thing. I think that the problem with regulating hate speech, it's very simple. Who defines hate? And the answer to that is, over any reasonable period of time, exactly the people you would least want to have define hate.
I love that you made that point. Not that he's watching this video, but I love that you made that point. Because with regulations, someone has to make regulations. Who's making these regulations? Why are they making these regulations? Are they making the regulations because people are just, whoever makes the most noise? Oh, we're offended. We are more offended than anyone. They should no longer be able to say cereal. Or it's a hate crime. And guess what? To appease them, for whatever reasons you're appeasing them for, probably not because they're being destroyed in the world or anything like that, or because they're being bullied to the point where they have to commit suicide. And I'm not talking about anything specific, because there's been a few things like that, still is. And we don't play with that at all. But whose voice will they decide to listen to, for what purposes, and how straightforward or how crooked can this get? Because they'll do it for $1 too. Say one organization is financing something way more than another organization. Or I don't know a whole bunch about politics, but I'm just saying it could get real shaky. It could get real shady. So who's defining this hate speech? What, you're going to have a room full of people who are designated to define what's considered hate speech? Okay, let's put a law behind this. Nah. Let them go ahead and be idiots. And if it said to somebody, look, we are built like tanks. We can get over things. We can move forward. But the people who want to sell hate, over and over and over and over and over again, and they're constantly being rejected over and over and over and over and over again, they're going to start to see their dumb ways. And guess what? It's going to stop regardless anyway. Even with the N-word. Me and my friends, we still say it every now and again because that's when we're around each other. That's what we say, the N-word. It comes out like it's super smooth. It's something we've been doing all our lives. It's not frowned upon. But we was talking about a great majority of us are starting to really like connect with people outside of our circles. And by saying that, I mean other races. And like befriending other races. Not just working with, because we've all had coworkers that were white, that were Asian, that was other, but now we're starting to have friends. And we was talking about that N-word. And something was said that I don't like. I mean, if they want to say it around their music, the rap music that says it a lot, and they're at one of the concerts, then hey, go for it. Do your thing. The artist will probably want you to sing along with them and not skip a word. Hey, do you? But for the majority of the black men that's having this conversation, we feel like, but they just can't say the word around us. So the thing that we ended up with was, how about we just stop saying it? Because you don't want to be hypocritical. Much love to my man Hood for that. Yeah. It's hypocritical. If it's so bad and so dirty of a word, why even say it yourself? So yeah, all right.
Time, exactly the people you would least want to have define hate. And so the consequences of the regulation become incalculably worse as a problem than the problem that they were designed to deal with. To think otherwise is to think in a sort of utopian manner. It's like, well, we have a problem, hate speech. Well, we can come up with a solution and there will be no problems with that solution. It's like, no, that isn't how the world works. You know, when I'm negotiating with my clinical clients, one of the things I always tell them is, often, because they're in difficult circumstances, and often not for psychological reasons, it's like, no, you don't understand. You're screwed both ways. You don't have an option here where you're not going to suffer. That's what it means to be in a bad situation. You're going to pay a price both ways. You can pick your price. Okay, so we're going to have hate speech, or we're going to have the consequences of the arbitrary regulation of hate speech. Well, I know what the consequences are of the arbitrary regulation of hate speech, is that things get a lot worse, because hate's very difficult to define. And that's actually a real problem when you're trying to regulate it, because you have to be able to define it. And we're already at a point where, well, you made someone uncomfortable. Why isn't that hate speech? I mean, I was basically asked that by one of your most outstanding journalists, or your most popular journalists. Well, why should you have the right to say something that's offensive? It's like,
boy is good. He is good. He's good. He's good.
We can think that through. Let's think that through for a minute. So, I mean, my riposte to her, essentially, although this wasn't directly, it was, that's not a very smart question for a journalist to be asking, right? Because of all people who should never ask that question would be stand-up comics, right? And journalists. Because that's all they ever do. That's what it means to be a journalist, is to ask a question that's going to be offensive to someone. Who the hell wants to hear about what you've discovered unless it's about something contentious and important? So it was a jaw-dropping question as far as I was concerned. And the fact that it was a jaw-dropping question was part of the reason why that video went viral. Okay, so now let's think about offensiveness as part of hate. Okay, so the first thing we might say is that you really need to think when you have a difficult problem. And a difficult problem is one where there's something at stake. It might be your life, it might be your well-being, but and then we might say, well, there's going to be a diversity of opinions about that particular conundrum if it actually happens to be difficult. And so even to discuss it, because if you discuss it, you're going to discuss option A, it's going to annoy all the people who want option B, or you're going to discuss option B, and that's going to annoy all the people that want option A, and maybe there's 10 options. So if you're going to discuss anything of any real significance whatsoever, you're going to make people hot under the collar, and you're going to risk offending them. Okay, so what, you just stop talking about difficult things? And the answer to that is yes, and that's what's happening. But then there's another problem, which is there isn't anything I could conceivably say about anything that isn't going to offend someone if the crowd is large enough. So you might say, well, if you're talking to two people, you can't offend one of them. So you don't get to offend 50% of the population. It's like, okay, let's say I'm talking to 1,000 people, and one person finds what I'm saying offensive. Say, well, that's hateful. It's like, well, that's 1 in 1,000. So should I stop? What if it's 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 1,000,000? Like, where's the cutoff?
This dude, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I don't think I've ever reacted to anyone this intelligent. He's different. He's completely different. He's so different. My gracious, man.
You might think, well, we'll work that out. It's like, no. You don't get it. The devil's in the details. You work it out now when you formulate your restrictions on free speech. You don't shunt that off into the future so that it's a problem that'll be solved. Who defines hate? Insoluble problem. Don't regulate it, because you can't define it. That's how it looks to me. So you have the free marketplace of ideas, so to speak, where the collective can render a judgment on the acceptability of an idea on an ongoing basis. And that isn't a great solution, because we don't have great solutions. We have partial, fragmentary solutions that make us somewhat less abjectly miserable than we might be. That's what we have. And if we try to eradicate that kind of risk completely, all we do is magnify a different kind of risk.
Thank you.
And that's how you answer. That's how you break it down, bro. That's how you answer a question. See, oh man, I need to get myself more time so that I can read more. Because this brother he's just different. And he encourages me, for real. He encourages me. But I want to hear what y'all have to say about this in the comments below. And if you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. And shout out to all of our new Discord members and Facebook LFR Family Live members. Thank you so much. See, y'all been taking up for a brother too. I really appreciate that. I just want to say I see you. I know who got my back, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you did it with respect, and you did it with love. Thank you. All right. I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video, hopefully inside everything we got. Love y'all.